Good Wednesday morning. Today, John and I are going to talk about children. I have my oldest son, Levi, who's about to turn 10 in a couple weeks, and I'm actually planning a rafting trip to take him down a river, just him and I, for an evening to get some time. And I actually had some questions for John to ask him, things that I could be thinking about because my wife and I have been talking through things we want to be talking about with him. So, John, what would you recommend a father like me, say, maybe discuss on a rafting trip like that with a 10-year-old?
Yeah, you've got to have ways to set it up. You know, we're all so embarrassed to talk about it. They talk amongst themselves. I mean, how much of your sex education came from your peer group?
All of it.
So at some point, on a rafting trip, you're looking first of all for reality. Well, you see it around you and you can talk about that. And you say there's one bit of reality that I have to talk to you if I'm going to be a good dad. And it's a bit embarrassing for you and it's not easy for me, but we need to do it. And you've got to talk about sexuality and all that flows from it. And the 4 levels of happiness approach works, you see. They are currently approaching sexuality as though they were just animals. And animals do it in public without any problem. They're driven by instincts, nothing else. And when the cow's on heat, she'll go looking for a bull, and the bull will be smelling her out. And that's across the board, but not with us in the same way. Now, Levi hasn't yet started looking at girls, I don't suppose, because as puberty, no. Well, so the first thing you have to talk about is the next little while is not easy. I didn't realize till my wife told me, for instance, that almost all girls hate their bodies when they're approaching puberty and when they start menstruating. Very difficult. I had never thought about that. You know, we look at them and think how wonderful they are, and they hate their bodies. I mean, anorexia is a body hatred disease, and it's dominantly female. So you can then talk about, we're different. We're not just animals, so you can't think of it that way. So rationally, what do we think about? Well, what you have to talk about next is teleology, purpose. What are the purposes in life? And he will have his ambitions. And then you can ask, well, how's sex going to fit into that? If sex's primary function is to produce the next generation, that's the biological function. And we're destroying ourselves around the Western world at the moment. There's hardly a country that has a birth rate that will support the future. It's 2.1 babies per marriage. Now, Christians are going to win on this deal. We will become a larger and larger proportion of the population, but we've got to educate ourselves. The ones who will be a significant voting bloc by 2050 are Orthodox Jews, because they're having an average of 8. That's going to make a big difference to the politics of America. But so you can start off in a very practical sort of way. Now, you could say that sex is very exciting, and the excitement is very short-lived. You can, in other words, you can have a little bit of a smile about it, but you've got to work about it. And then the other thing, you can maybe even start there. In Deuteronomy, God says to the children of Israel, if you keep my laws, then you will not have the diseases of Egypt. What's he talking about? Well, syphilis was a major problem. We can find that in the bones of mummies. Now, the only way you can avoid sexually transmitted disease for certain is what? Be a virgin and marry a virgin. You can't get them. And they have the best marriages by far. They're so good that the sexologists you'll never see them write about virgins marrying virgins. They pretend it doesn't exist, but it does. So that's the way I'd go. And it's going to take a long while, but you will have at least opened the subject up.
Right before I started hitting record, you made a comment about a transgender family with a child transgender. Anything you want to mention about that?
Well, that's a dysphoria. We don't say to anorexics that their view of their body's as good as ours. It isn't. We have objective criteria. If you're going to be that thin, you're going to die. Now, if you have sex without any concern as to who you're having sex with, you are going to get sexually transmitted disease with its consequences. The place to do this is in the youth groups. Every year, the youth group in a church must have a talk on sexually transmitted disease. There's plenty of good material out there that you can get through CMDA and the like, but there's got to be a doctor in the community who needs to pick up that responsibility, just to talk about what's happened. I mean, there's been an explosion of sexually transmitted disease in the world since the pill. It relates. They're all related. You should probably read The Bitter Pill. Just put Bitter Pill into Google and you'll find it. It's by Reichardt. It was in First Things. It's the first economic analysis of contraception that I found.